"She's gone again," Lieutenant Marcus Vale said into his radio, trying to hide how tired he was as he looked at the empty room where Princess Lyanna should have been sleeping. And this was the 5th time this week she'd disappeared. The 5th time he'd have to find her. And the 5th time he'd probably discover her in the exact same place doing the exact same strange thing. How does she keep getting past the cameras? Captain Morrison's voice came back, frustrated and confused. But Marcus already knew the answer. Aetherians could control light and energy, making themselves invisible when they wanted to be, which made protecting one feel less like security work and more like watching a really determined escape artist. "I'll find her, sir," Marcus said, already walking toward the one place he knew she'd be. The viewing deck on level 7 where the window showed Earth in all its blue and green beauty. Because for reasons he couldn't understand, Princess Lyanna kept leaving her fancy royal rooms, sneaking past 3 security points and 2 energy barriers, just to sit in an empty room and stare at his home planet like it had all the secrets she needed. The real mystery wasn't how she escaped, it was why, and after 2 months of this pattern, Marcus wanted answers. He found her exactly where he expected, sitting cross-legged on the floor in front of the huge window, her glowing skin giving off a soft blue light in the dark room, and her crystal-like hair caught the light from Earth below, making her look like some kind of magical spirit. She didn't turn when he walked in, didn't react at all, just kept staring at Earth with a look that Marcus had learned meant longing, mixed with something deeper, something almost sad. "Your Highness," he said formally, though they'd done this enough times that being formal felt silly. "You're missing and your security team is worried again." She finally looked at him, and those eyes, purple with silver flecks that moved like living starlight, showed amusement and something else he couldn't understand. "Hello, Lieutenant Vale," she said in that musical voice that always made his chest feel tight. "I'm sorry for the trouble, I just needed to see the view." It was the same excuse every time, and it was clearly not the whole truth, but Marcus had learned that pushing Princess Lyanna only made her hide behind polite words. "The view from your rooms is better," he pointed out, moving to stand beside her. "You have a private balcony looking at 3 galaxies. This deck shows 1 planet." She smiled slightly. Maybe I like this particular planet, that was new. In all their earlier meetings, she'd never admitted liking anything specific, just gave vague reasons about needing air or space or quiet time. Marcus studied her face, the smooth curve of her neck, the way her glowing marks pulsed gently with her heartbeat, the slight tension in her shoulders that suggested she was nervous about something. "Why?" he asked simply, dropping the formal speech because clearly that wasn't working. "Why this planet? Why this room? Why do you keep running away from the safest, most comfortable place on this station just to sit here?" She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then she turned to face him completely, and the strength in her gaze made his breath catch. "Because you're from there," she said softly, pointing to Earth. "That blue world created you, shaped you, made you who you are, and I come here to try to understand it, to understand you." Marcus felt like the floor had disappeared under him. "I don't understand," he managed, and she laughed, a sound like crystal bells in wind. "I know you don't, Lieutenant, and that's part of the problem." She stood up smoothly, her height making her almost eye level with him despite her thin frame. "My people have an ability your species doesn't," she said, her marks glowing brighter. "We can sense resonance, emotional and spiritual connection between souls. It's how we've chosen life partners for thousands of years, how we know who we're meant to be with." Marcus's heart started beating faster. "Your Highness," but she continued, the words pouring out after weeks of holding them back. "From the moment I arrived on this station and you were made my guard, I felt it, the resonance between us, strong and clear and certain, and it scares me because you're human. You don't feel what I feel. You can't sense this connection. And I'm supposed to marry Prince Kavros of the Northern Territories in 6 weeks to unite our kingdoms." She turned back to the window, her reflection showing the pain on her face. "So I run, I escape to this room, and I look at your world trying to find a reason why the universe would show me my perfect match and make him completely, impossibly wrong for me in every political and practical way." The silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the station and the distant sound of ships. Marcus's mind was racing. Weeks of mysterious behavior suddenly made sense. Her interest in Earth culture, the way she'd ask him questions about his childhood and family, how happy she'd look when he shared stories about his home. "You feel this resonance with me?" he asked carefully, and she nodded without turning around. Like a song that only I can hear, like your soul is calling to mine in a language I was born understanding. She laughed sadly. And you feel nothing, of course, because humans don't have this sense. You choose partners through trying and hoping, and I must seem crazy to you. Marcus moved to stand beside her, close enough that he could see his own reflection in the window next to hers, human and alien, so different yet somehow looking right together. I don't think you're crazy, he said quietly. I think you're the bravest person I've ever met and the kindest. And every time I find you here, I'm relieved because it means getting to talk to you away from all the rules and politics. And maybe I don't have your resonance sense, but I do know that spending time with you is the best part of my job. Maybe the best part of my day. He saw her eyes go wide in the reflection. I thought I was just being professional and you were just being polite, he admitted. But if we're sharing secrets, then you should know that I asked for this job. I specifically requested to be your guard. And when you disappear, it's not just duty that makes me come find you. It's the fact that I can't stand the thought of you being somewhere I'm not. She turned to him with a look of wonder mixed with heartbreak. You do feel it, she whispered. Maybe not the same way. Maybe not with the certainty my people have, but you feel the pull between us. Marcus nodded. Years of military training fighting with an emotion he'd been trying to ignore for months. But it doesn't matter, does it? He said, reality hitting hard. You're a princess with duties. I'm a human security officer. And in 6 weeks you'll marry someone else and I'll be sent somewhere new, and this will just be a story we both forget eventually. Lyanna's marks flashed bright red. Anger, he'd learned. I will never forget you, Marcus Vale, she said strongly, using his first name for the first time. The resonance doesn't fade just because it's inconvenient. I'll marry Prince Kavros because my duty demands it. I'll be a good wife and eventually a good queen. But I will spend every day feeling your absence like a missing arm, and I will never forget what it felt like to find the one soul in the universe that matched mine perfectly and have to walk away from it. Tears were streaming down her face now, and where they fell, they left glowing traces on her skin. That's why I run, Marcus. Not to Earth's view, but to the possibility of a few stolen moments with you before duty takes even that away from me. Something broke inside Marcus at seeing her tears, and he did something that could get him in serious trouble. Something that broke every rule about contact with diplomatic guests. He pulled her into his arms and held her while she cried. Her skin was warm and hummed faintly with energy, and he felt her freeze in surprise before relaxing into the hug. We can't, she whispered against his chest even as her arms wrapped around him. This makes it worse. This makes leaving impossible. Marcus held her tighter. Then don't leave, he said recklessly. Tell them the wedding's off. Tell them you found your resonance match. Tell them whatever you need, but don't marry someone else when we both know you belong here. She pulled back to look at him, hope and fear fighting in her expression. They'll disown me, my parents, my kingdom. Everything I've known since birth. The marriage to Kavros is the key to a peace treaty that will save thousands of lives. I can't just abandon it for personal happiness. Marcus touched her face, his thumb tracing one of her glowing marks. What if there's another way, he asked. What if we find a different solution to the treaty? What if your happiness doesn't have to be the sacrifice? She shook her head sadly. There is no other way, we've looked. The Northern Territories will only make peace through marriage. A thought struck Marcus. But they need a marriage bond, not necessarily a specific person, right? Lyanna frowned, confused. Technically, yes, but I'm the only unmarried royal of the right age. Oh. Her eyes widened as she understood what he meant. Oh no, Marcus, you can't be suggesting— Why not? Marcus said, the idea forming even as he spoke. If the treaty needs a marriage bond between kingdoms, and if this resonance of yours is considered real among your people, then marrying me would fulfill the requirements. Lyanna was shaking her head. You're human, not Aetherian royalty. They'd never accept it. Marcus smiled. But I'm a decorated officer, a representative between Earth and the Galactic Coalition. And if Earth agreed to support the peace treaty as a third party with me as the representative connecting the three powers, he saw understanding appear on her face. It could work, she breathed. It would be unusual, controversial, my parents would fight it. But the Northern Territories care more about the alliance than the specific family line. And if Earth's military power backed the treaty, she grabbed his hands, her marks blazing brilliant gold. Marcus, this could actually work, but it would mean giving up your career. Your life as you know it, you'd become my husband, forever tied to Aetherian politics and duties. Marcus pulled her close again, breathing in her scent of electricity and flowers. I've been tied to you since the moment we met, he said. I just didn't have a name for it like you did. So yeah, I'll give up my career. I'll learn your politics. I'll be whatever you need me to be if it means not spending the rest of my life wondering what if. The next 4 weeks were crazy with negotiations, treaties, and diplomatic meetings that made Marcus's head spin. But Lyanna handled it all with grace and fierce determination. Earth's coalition representative agreed to the plan after Marcus made a passionate case about working together across species and the strategic value of the alliance. And surprisingly, Prince Kavros himself supported the change, admitting he'd found his own resonance match and had been dreading the political marriage. Lyanna's parents were harder to convince, but when they witnessed the resonance bond during a formal demonstration, watching their daughter's marks match with Marcus's heartbeat in patterns that couldn't be faked, they reluctantly gave their blessing. You'll still have to learn our customs, her father said gruffly to Marcus. You'll be husband to a future queen, which means rules, ceremonies, and a lifetime of people watching you. Marcus looked at Lyanna, whose marks were glowing with joy. For her, he said simply, I'd learn to breathe underwater if that's what it took. The wedding took place on the station's grand ceremony deck, with representatives from 3 worlds watching. And when Marcus took Lyanna's hands and felt the resonance bond form, a warmth spreading through his chest that let him feel her emotions as clearly as his own, he finally understood what she'd been experiencing all along. I feel you, he whispered, amazed, and she laughed through happy tears. Finally, she said. Finally, you understand why I kept running away, why I couldn't stay in those empty rooms when my soul knew exactly where it belonged. The ceremony ended with an Aetherian tradition where bonded pairs share their first kiss under starlight, and as Marcus held his new wife with Earth rising in the window behind them, he realized that sometimes the best things in life come from people who refuse to accept the first answer, who run toward what they want instead of away from what scares them. So, he said when they finally stopped kissing, her marks painting them both in colors of joy and love. Does this mean you'll stop escaping your rooms? Lyanna grinned playfully. That depends. Will you be in them with me? Marcus lifted her up, making her laugh, that crystal sound he'd fallen in love with. Every single night for the rest of our lives, he promised. And you'll never have to run away to find me, because wherever you are, that's where I'll be. 6 months later, when Marcus found himself in the royal palace on Aetheria, serving as both husband and Earth's permanent ambassador, he sometimes thought back to those early days of finding the princess missing and feeling frustrated at her mysterious behavior. Now, understanding the resonance that connected them, he couldn't imagine a version of his life where he'd let her marry someone else, where he'd let duty and rules override what his heart had been trying to tell him all along. What are you thinking about? Lyanna asked, leaning against him on their private balcony overlooking 3 galaxies, and through their bond he felt her contentment mixed with curiosity. I'm thinking about how you used to run away, he said, running his fingers through her crystal hair, and how I used to chase you, and how neither of us knew we were running toward the same thing. She smiled, her marks glowing soft blue in the starlight. I knew, she said. From the very first moment I felt our resonance. I knew exactly where I was running. I just had to wait for you to realize you were running too. Marcus kissed her forehead, feeling their emotions blend through the bond. Best chase of my life, he said, and meant it completely, because some people are worth running toward, worth fighting for, worth changing your entire life to be with, and he'd found that person in an alien princess who kept escaping just to be near him, who'd seen their future before he did, and had the courage to run toward it even when the whole universe seemed determined to keep them apart.